I'm so excited today, you guys. I've got my good friend, longtime friend, fellow Rotarian back in the day, Mr. David Lopez, certified financial planner. David, how are you doing today?
Hey, great. Good to see you, Mitch.
It's good to see you too. So here's what I'm really excited about, you guys. When it comes to doing business, when it comes to talking about all of the things we talk about, entrepreneurship, starting a business, running a successful practice, I think there's an area that we usually let drop through the cracks, and that's the financial side of things. Whether it's in business, whether it's our personal lives, whether it's minimizing expenses, maximizing tax deductions. I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that most of us aren't focusing on this stuff. How many of you agree? So that's why I have David here today. Getting started in the show, David, I want to give you a proper introduction. But before I do that, I want to invite everyone, share your comments, share your real-time questions. We'll get through as many of them as we can. Share this out on social media. Invite your friends, family members, other people in business who can benefit from some of the pearls of wisdom that I know David's going to bring today. No pressure, David, but I know you're going to bring value to my audience. Invite them into the show. If you guys have questions, you can share them on social media. I'll get them on my panel. You can also text your questions. Join my community at 949-577-7456. That's 949-577-7456. I'll show this number again for those of you that are shy and you're not taking me up on this, but when I get your questions, I will come in and share them with David. So David is one of the most fascinating guys I know. He's a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. That was back in 1989, and he became a submarine officer. He then qualified, that's right, a submarine officer. How many submarine officers do you guys know? He then qualified as a nuclear engineer officer, served for 7 years, and was 3 times awarded the Navy Achievement Medal and also awarded the Navy Commendation Medal. In 1996, he was honorably discharged from the Navy, and that's when he began his financial career as a financial advisor. And that, you guys, is why I asked David to join us today. How are you doing?
Hey, great. It's a new year, and we got a lot coming down the pike. So really happy to be here. Thank you so much, Mitch, for the just a chance to talk to you. Our conversations are always some of my most enjoyable, but also to share what we have here with your great audience.
Well, thank you, David. I'm looking forward to helping everybody make good, smart financial decisions moving forward after this upside down COVID 2020, right? This has just been crazy. Forget about everything else. This has just been devastating for my clients. It's been a challenge for a lot of business owners. But moving forward in 2021, I know you and I talked before going live that there were 4 or 5 different major topics that you thought, this would be good for everyone to kind of pay attention to moving forward when it comes to our personal and business finances. And I know the list starts off with taking advantage of and maximizing the different retirement plans that are available to us both personally and professionally. Why don't we start there? Why are retirement plans so important, David, and what do we need to know about them?
Sure. Thanks, Mitch. So, and the overarching concept here is that entrepreneurs, business owners, your audience, Mitch, they are used to taking on tremendous amounts of risk, period, regardless of the type of business that they're in. When you cast off the corporate harness and you go it on your own, you are taking on huge amounts of risk. So we're just reminding people to set some money aside for yourself. Start locking in some of those hard-earned profits for yourself, because that's why you're here. And so we'll give you a few things to think about. And first and foremost, Mitch, everyone should have some type of tax-qualified retirement plan. You've heard of the 401k plan. We'll talk about that in a minute here. But any type of plan that gives you lots of tax advantages and allows you to save for your future, because you're not always going to be doing what it is that you're doing. I realize that many of you out there, your pursuit, your profession is a deep passion, but things change, or maybe you may find another passion or something at some other time, and you're going to want to have the financial flexibility to gradually move into that. All right. The first one, and the one I'm really excited to share right now, Mitch, because it's very timely for where we're at in the calendar year, is one of the most basic of all retirement accounts. It's called the SEP IRA, or Simplified Employee Pension Plan, SEP IRA. And this is, everybody's heard of the IRA, the Individual Retirement Account. This is a retirement account that's optimized for self-employed individuals, as its name suggests. And the thing that's great about it is, let's say you've been busy with your business, and like you're saying, Mitch, between COVID and elections and all the other craziness of 2020, you just didn't have time to set up a retirement plan for yourself. Well, not a problem. With the SEP, you can set up a SEP and fund it up until your tax filing deadline plus extensions for 2020. So that's, of course, your tax filing deadline is April 15th. And if you're an S corporation, that would wind up being all the way to October 15th for the 2020 calendar year. So that's a huge bit of flexibility for you.
Hey, David, before you share too much more information, let me just point out to everyone that we're not sharing any legal or financial planning advice during today's show. And what we're doing is just having a conversation, sharing some theories, sharing some ideas, hopefully answering your questions. And the full and complete disclaimer at streaming.lawyer is incorporated in full in this show, and it applies to both David and yours truly. So I just wanted to make sure, David, that while I know you're going to be adding a lot of value to our viewers today, both live and recorded, ask your questions, everybody, share this out. No financial advice or legal advice is being given. We're simply sharing some ideas about things you need to know about moving forward in 2021. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I did want to get that shared at the beginning of the show.
I appreciate it, Mitch. And to reiterate, none of this is to be construed as individual financial advice. Please contact me, your own or some other financial professional for specifics regarding your own unique situation. Awesome.
Thank you, David. So you mentioned that business owners that don't have their SEP IRA set up already, they can still do that in 2021, as you just described. What about business owners who have their SEP IRAs set up, but they didn't fund it by the end of 2020? Can they still fund them in 2021?
Yes, thank you, Mitch. This is the other thing that's very flexible about a number of retirement plans, but the SEP in particular. You can do the entire contribution for the SEP in arrears, between January and April the 15th or October the 15th for S corporations. So that's a huge amount of flexibility. And the amount that you can put away into a SEP is significant. For non-incorporated businesses, for sole proprietorships, for example, you can save up to 20% of your net income. So if you're making $100,000 a year, you could save up to 20 grand in a SEP. And
wow.
For S corporations, it's up to 25% of your W-2 wages. So that is some significant savings for you. Again, goes in before tax, so you get an immediate benefit right off the top. And then, of course, the money grows tax deferred over time. And then when you retire and use the funds, probably you're going to be in a somewhat lower tax bracket than you are now, or if you're lucky, it'll be just as high.
I like that mindset, but you never know, right?
That's right. And that would certainly be a great problem to have. But again, for the majority of people, they will probably be in a somewhat lower tax bracket as retirees than during their working years. So you get all those benefits. Now, what are the drawbacks, or at least what are the considerations for a SEP? So because a SEP is so bare bones, if you have employees, the amount of money as a percentage you put away for yourself, going to have to be the same thing for the employees. All right. So if you make, let's say you make $100,000 as the owner and you choose to put 10% or $10,000 into the plan, you're going to have to put $10,000 or 10%, away for each of the employees which qualifies to participate in the plan. So, and that may not be a problem. That may be part of your overall compensation scheme, a way to reward employees, but maybe you don't want to be quite on the hook for that much. And if that's the case, then we can take a look at kind of the next step up in sophistication, which is called the Simple IRA plan, which is another one of those funny acronyms. It's actually Savings Incentive Match Plan for Employees, SIMPLE, IRA. And this works, the Simple IRA plan works really well if you have a small business and you have some employees, up to 100. And Simple IRA works very much like a scaled down 401k plan. There's two sources of money that go into it. One, which is typically the major one, is your own salary deferral contributions. You have money taken out of your paycheck, it goes directly into the plan, goes in pre-tax. Again, you get that nice tax savings at the beginning, money grows tax deferred. As well, there is a match, which again, for those of you who have worked in corporate life, you're used to your employer giving you some kind of a match based on how much you contribute. And that match is basically dollar for dollar up to the first 3% of your salary. So this is a way, again, for you to put some money aside, both for yourself as well as for your employees. And your employees are going to see this as a huge benefit because, Mitch, the percentage of small businesses with some type of a retirement plan in place is probably less than about 20% of all small businesses.
That low.
It's really, really low. And so your employees, they're going to see the value. They're going to see that you care for their position and you're trying to earn their allegiance and stuff. So a great way to do that. Also, no setup costs, no administrative costs per se. We'll get into that with the regular 401k. How much can you put into the Simple? So the Simple IRA works, again, its contributions work more like a traditional 401k plan. It's a hard dollar amount, and you can put up to $13,500 into the plan. If you're under the age of 50, or if you're age 50 or more, you can do $16,500. That's pretty decent. I mean, somebody who's saving about 15 grand a year, you're going to get to a lot of your financial goals. And similar to a 401k plan, you only have to provide the matching contribution for those employees who decide to participate. So if they do their part, then you as the owner contribute some money on their behalf. If they choose not to participate because they're a little bit strapped financially, then you don't have to worry about making a contribution there. But it's so easy. You should encourage everybody to get started doing something because people can start participating as employee participants in the plan, typically for as little as $25 to $50 a month. So
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Great way to.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Let me jump in
right
real
ahead.
quick. I think this is important. We have a couple of questions, and Stephen's comments reminded me about these questions. Stephen's watching us from Scotland right now, and his comment has more to do with how we're doing our live video. So thank you, Stephen. I agree. Anytime David's bigger than I am on the screen, that's an improvement. So we're not going to disagree with you. But when you talk about SEP IRAs and some of the other retirement plans, are we talking about U.S.-based companies, or is this something that applies around the world? I think we need to delineate.
Okay.
Right.
So,
that's why I'm bringing it up.
So these specific concepts only apply to U.S.-based businesses and employers.
Okay.
I have not researched it in detail, but I do know from some of my reading, most developed countries have things that are structures that are similar. So,
Okay. Fair enough. So we're talking U.S. individuals who are citizens residing in the U.S. or companies doing business in the U.S. And if there are any questions, people need to reach out to you, privately, one-on-one, and/or their financial planning expert in their state.
That's right. There you go.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just noticed some of the questions are, does this work in Canada? Does this work in Mexico? And I think we're talking U.S. here, if I'm not mistaken.
We are talking U.S. So, okay. but the concepts remain. Pay yourself first. Save and try to maximize your tax advantages. think long-term. All of that applies no matter where on the planet you are.
I love that. And there are different types of retirement plans out there. What works best for me may not be the best fit for you. That's one reason I wanted David to come on and at least, just give you a taste of what you may be missing out on, what you might be wanting to take advantage of moving forward in 2021. For those of you just joining us, both live and recorded, I'm speaking with my dear friend, David Lopez, who's a certified financial planner. He's also a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, ex-submarine. Are you an ex-submarine officer or once an officer, always an officer? How does that work, David?
I guess I would say I'm a former submarine officer.
Former submarine officer. Okay. And nuclear engineer officer. So, one of the smartest guys that I've ever crossed paths with in my life. And you're welcome. It's the truth. And that's why you're here. Also comfortable on stage, also comfortable when you're not in the office, comfortable doing other things. And I love sharing the human side of who we are and what we do. What are some other things, just real quick, David, before we roll over to the next maybe 4 financial tips for 2021? I want everyone to get to know you like I do. What are some other things you enjoy doing when you're not in the office?
Well, before COVID and those restrictions, I enjoyed performing on stage in community theater, mostly all very small parts. My wife, Susan, who works with me in the business, she is quite an accomplished actress in the community theater realm. She's probably been in 45 or 50 productions, and I think I've been in 15 or so. So it's kind of a fun thing to do together. We started with our kids and that kind of hung around it.
Those darn kids, they always get us to go in directions that we didn't expect, did we?
Yeah, and we once both of my, as you know, mentioned, my older daughter has graduated from college and my younger daughter is in college. So once they had left the local area, we're like, oh, we're going to stick around with the theater thing. But it's like so many things that you encounter, the groups you're involved with, the people are so great and the experience is so fantastic and fulfilling. We're like, yeah, we're going to stick with this.
And I love seeing the pictures that you share on social media, whether you're in the theater, whether you're out hiking. For me, that just really kind of tells you what someone's really about. And I like to do business with people who I know, like, and trust. And I think by sharing that content, David, it really kind of connects you with the community. It connects us with you. It's one reason Lisa and I have sat across the table from you to seek your counsel on different things. And for allowing us the opportunity to do that. We really appreciate it. Hey, let's dive back down into financial planning real quick. Yep. Got a nice comment here from B. Robinson. Thanks for your service, David. I do lots of work with veterans in my community. Yeah, no kidding. Thank you. Thank you, B.
You're most welcome. It was my pleasure to serve, and it provided a great opportunity for me. Thank you very much.
So, David, we've talked a little bit about different types of retirement plans, and there are others out there, but you guys can reach out to David directly if you have any questions about those. The second area that a lot of business owners, a lot of individuals probably aren't tapping into is the power of retirement, the power of life insurance, the benefits of life insurance, and the different types of life insurance policies that are out there. Talk to us a little bit about life insurance.
Okay. Thank you, Mitch. And this is a big one. And it seems so obvious, but like we let off with at the beginning of the show, when we're in our businesses, when we're in our practices, you turn around and 5 years have gone and, oh yeah, I was supposed to add some life insurance. So life insurance protects those who depend on you in the event that you're no longer there, especially unexpectedly. And you have to have, if you take anything from this discussion today, is actually to go check to see how much life insurance you have and make sure that it's enough. All right. And you probably need more than you think. We usually recommend that clients have 7 to 10 times their gross income in life insurance, at least
really
up to yes. Because and think about it, Mitch. If God forbid something happened, if I was younger, if something happened to me, you look at paying off a house, getting my kids through school, taking care of the rest of my family, that's 7 to 10 times my income. It goes pretty quick, right? So think about numbers more like that. And my recommendation to clients is virtually always to use low-cost term insurance. Life insurance, as people's life expectancies have gotten longer, the cost per unit has really come down, and you don't have to pay some huge amount of money to make sure that your family and your business is protected. There are some very unique idiosyncratic cases where more complex policies, things like whole life and universal life may be a fit, but for virtually everybody, low-cost term insurance is the way to go. So think about that. Those other type of products, due to their complexity and things, it's just not the best way to put money to work. Much better, as you've often heard, to buy term and invest the rest. Dave Ramsey says that, and a lot of other professionals out there say the same thing.
So before we move on, I mean, we have whole life, we have term and variable life are some notes that I have as to different types of life insurance. And what's right for you is probably has more to do with what your goals are. What I'm talking about the audience members. I'm just looking at some notes. I'm paraphrasing. Check with your financial planner. David, I don't know what Lisa and I are into, but we got something where a long time ago, and it invests a lot of money into the market. Unfortunately, the market's gone up. It's probably not a bad thing, but it's complicated. It can get really complicated. Even for lawyers, it can be a little bit overwhelming to keep track of all of the different options and what should we be doing. So what I'm hearing from you is maybe sit down with your financial advisor, your financial planner, maybe bring up the term life. And is that something that would be good for me? That's probably a good starting point.
That is a great starting point, and whatever somebody's situation, whatever type of insurance coverage they have, they should start a conversation to at least review what they're doing.
I think he's talking to me, you guys. So I think I'm going to have to circle back, David. No, I know, but I think I need to circle back to you. And that's how much I trust this guy, you guys, because it's, it's complicated stuff, even for those of us that deal with complicated financials each and every day in our practice. Oftentimes, David, and let me ask you just a general question. We have a lot of professionals and lawyers, doctors, some CPAs watching. I have found that it seems to me like a lot of professionals spend all their time helping their clients, their patients, as opposed to themselves. They almost put themselves last when it comes to this type of planning. Have you found that to be the case, or are my friends just different than everybody else?
No, you're right on, Mitch. I think it's they say that the cobbler's children don't have any shoes, that syndrome, and that is an aspect of just the busy world that we have, and also people like you and your audience members. You've got a case that you're working on, and you've got to figure this thing out for the client to give them the best possible shot in life that you can. And yeah, those things, those ideas of taking care of even your own family, they just kind of pass by, not because you're careless or you don't care, but just because there's only so many hours in the day, and you get home after doing all that analysis and you're like, I need to sit for a second. Boom. Before you know it, you're back at the office. So think about, again, and there's plenty of people in various professions like you listed, think about possibly delegating some of this, outsourcing some of this work to somebody else. There's probably a lot of do-it-yourselfer investors out there. That's fantastic, in the audience. But maybe you've reached a point where that's just one more thing that you maybe could unload off your brain so that you could focus on winning the case, or focus on your next surgery, or focus on your next tax return. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think it also, a lot of us, 2020 was a very stressful year. And in addition to blinking and having everything go by at light speed, sometimes the stress can be overwhelming. And maybe by delegating out your investment strategies and the things we're talking about to experts like David, it can take the stress and the pressure off of you, and frankly, put it on him or on others in other states to do what they do best. This is what they're trained to do. Along those lines, David, we've talked about different types of retirement plans that individuals and companies moving forward on in 2021 should take into consideration. We've talked about life insurance and the different plans that you might want to consider with life insurance. The next topic, which has always been a little bit confusing for me, I'll admit that, has to do with annuities, variable annuities and fixed annuities. Should those be part of our 2021 plans? If so, or if not, why not? And then what exactly are annuities? It's kind of a strange animal it's hard for me to wrap my mind around them.
It is. And so thanks, Mitch. So annuities, should they be part of your strategy for 21? Again, talk to your advisor or another financial professional to determine it. A whole show could be dedicated just to this topic. But first off, what are they? These are kind of hybrid retirement planning products. They were created decades ago, mostly by the insurance industry, and they allow you to put money to work. And probably the most notable aspect from an investment standpoint is that that money grows tax deferred. So instead of getting those annoying 1099s at the end of the year from your traditional brokerage account, not that that's good or bad, but maybe you don't want that, annuities will defer the taxation until you use the income. And they are okay. They are a tool like any other. However, some things to be careful of in the case of annuities. One, big picture, there can definitely be significant issues regarding overall suitability for these products for clients. One, they tend to be much more complex than a traditional portfolio of securities. Two, the cost can be much higher, again, than a traditional portfolio of securities due to various types of riders and other things that may be attached to the annuities, which may provide some value to some people, but in general, create a much higher bar for the portfolio to get over before you start making any money. And lastly, the compensation for many, not all, but the majority of annuities can be fairly high for the agent involved. Again, not a problem for people to make money. That's fine. We're here to talk about ways that all of you are making money and ways that you can improve your businesses. But just make sure you ask the agent for full and total disclosure about her compensation and the structures and limitations involved with getting at your money and things like that. So like I say, we could spend a whole show on that, but those are just kind of, it's more a set of caveats there.
So if I walk into a financial planner who I don't know, and I've listened to this show, I've watched this show, and maybe he or she is suggesting that I invest in or buy into a particular type of annuity or other financial investment instrument, and I either haven't heard about it before, or maybe it's something that wasn't top of the list with what you and I are talking about. It's okay for the consumer to stop and say, "Tell me more. Do you have any documentation or brochures I can read about? What are the fees? Am I locked in? Can I exit this anytime I want? And if so, are there penalties?" It's okay for people to actively engage in these conversations, right? Because I think a lot of people are afraid to do that when they're in my office. And I like it when clients ask me questions. How about with financial planners?
Oh, absolutely. And that is the idea of full and fair disclosure is just so critical. And we, the fiduciary rules, especially that certified financial planners like myself operate under, but that most advisors with regulation best interest that was passed a couple of years ago, they are required to easily and clearly explain the types of fees, restrictions, limitations, charges involved, and the risks involved with whatever you're contemplating pursuing. So take it at your own pace. Don't let anyone, put a contract under your nose the very first day and sign things. Take stuff home, read it over, take some time to think about it, ask for a second opinion from somebody like me or someone else you may know who knows things about investing and finances.
David, with respect to doing what you just described, and you guys were speaking with certified financial planner David Lopez, a personal friend of mine, ex-United States Naval Academy graduate, submarine officer, nuclear engineer officer. I mean, right? Okay. We ran a different circle in school, David. I just want you to know that. But I figured if he's good enough, this is years ago, to do all the above, he's certainly good enough and more than qualified to handle our financial plan, right? And that's why I've got David here with all of you, as we're talking about 2021 financial planning business ideas. We've talked about retirement plans, life insurance. We talked about annuities. We're talking right now about engaging and asking questions of your financial planner. And where I'm going with this, David, is can we do all that in today's world, practicing social distancing? Can questions get answered using Zoom? Should that be something that we seek out as a consumer when engaging with a financial planner? What are some things that you would look at if this isn't what you did for a living, but knowing what you know, I've got money, I need to get it invested, I want to get health insurance for the family, life insurance, I want to do the things we're talking about, but I don't want to sit across the desk right now because I think it's not safe to do so. What are some ways they can get these questions answered?
That is a great question. Thanks, Mitch. So certainly I use Zoom all the time for clients. I started out, this is even before COVID and things like that. There are just some people who didn't have the ability. Mostly they were clients who would say started here with me in Southern California. They had moved away. And so I used Skype initially and GoToMeeting for some, and I kind of settled on Zoom for myself as the main tool. For again, narrowly focusing on Zoom and video communications. I find Zoom is almost more effective because we're able to share on the screen various charts, various forms, and it really gets the client's total attention. And of course, you can pull that back and then speak face to face. You can get the feedback from each other about how somebody feels about something, or if they may have a question in their mind. And as far as the bigger picture, what questions should people be asking? I'm obviously partial to the certified financial planner designation. It involves a lot of education and passing a significant 6-hour final exam. Plus, we ascribe to a code of ethics like attorneys and CPAs do. These look at the person's experience, look at their backup, what's their home office and back office support look like, and kind of listen for the investment philosophy. And if there's, again, not that this would be a deal breaker, but if it were me being David Lopez walking in, if somebody had a lot of flash and pizzazz and they were promising me the moon and stuff, I would probably avoid that, or at least think twice about working with somebody like that, because
I'd run the other way.
and that's maybe
who's paying for all that, right?
That's a great point, Mitch. So when you see the bigger, the glitzier building, again, businesses are the way that they are. Some businesses decide to be very big and very glossy, and some are smaller and leaner. But somebody is paying for that, and that is the customers. So again, neither good nor bad. Make sure that you and the advisor are a fit. That's one thing in initial meetings with potential clients, and I think you use similar language, because I've heard you talking about these kind of things. We talk about what the client is interested in, and we say, well, let's see if we're actually a fit, because maybe they want something that is not the way that I think about things, or something like that, or maybe they.
David, I want to put all my money in Bitcoins. Okay, I don't care what you just buy Bitcoins for me and put them in my retirement plan. It's a good fit, right? So you want to ask these questions,
right,
so that you're sitting across from someone that shares a similar retirement approach, right? An investment approach. If you don't mind, because we're going to also talk about risk levels, everyone, and diversification. What does it really mean? Those are our last two talking points. I think they're really, really important. I've got a couple of questions here that kind of fit in with what we're talking about right now. One of the questions that's come in over my community text platform, you guys, if you're not part of my community, this is a text community I have, is you can one-on-one with me. If you guys want to connect with me, this is where you want to join. It's 949-577-7456. This is pretty cool little platform, but I'm also fielding questions right now. And one of them, David, is, I'm paraphrasing, it seems to me that what you're explaining, it makes sense. It's common sense. How do people talk to us about Bernie Madoff, and how could so many smart people allow this guy to steal so much money from them? Look, we have good and bad lawyers out there. We have good and bad doctors out there. This is someone that was, I think, found guilty of stealing like $50 billion from some of the wealthiest people around the world. These are smart people that got suckered into this whole thing. How in the world does that happen? That's a great question.
And there are books on it. You can watch the mini series on TV and stuff.
Oh, is there a mini series out?
Yeah. In general, we are drawn when the thing with, like, when you talk about a Ponzi scheme like Bernie Madoff, people would look at these returns, which were very good and very, very consistent. And the human mind, which is always trying to weave a narrative, right, looks at that and says, that's the thing for me, because that's a great return with not much uncertainty. But what do we know empirically is that to make more, you have to be willing to take on more risk, or at least more volatility and uncertainty. And so people, again, they meet somebody, they get to know them, and then the brain fills in the narrative. Oh, this person just walked into my life, but down the line, oh, it seems like I've known them my whole life. And and because our brain works that way, sometimes people can wind up getting suckered into, gosh knows anything. If it fits with their narrative. Oh, I want a 10% return, or whatever it was that he claimed to provide. And so people say, oh yeah, that's what I've been looking for. Here it is. And all these other people are doing it, so it must be good. So there always, you really need to have some degree of healthy skepticism. Obviously, find people like Mitch that you like and can trust. And obviously Mitch's incredible track record which is totally verifiable, shows that. Here in the case of Bernie Madoff, the ability to verify was just not as refined as it is now.
True. Yeah, what we know with social media right now, the digital platforms, a lot of that stuff wasn't as advanced as it is now. I think the challenge, this is leading to my next series of questions about knowing your risk when you invest money. The challenge is that people need to do their due diligence. Don't believe everything you see on the internet, you guys. Do your due diligence. Just because you have a friend that says you should hire this guy, he or she's the best, doesn't mean you want to run out and do that. And I think with Bernie Madoff, that was one of the big problems, is you had, one wealthy individual recommending to his or her friends, this is the guy you want to go with. David's a certified financial planner. That's a big deal, you guys. Like he said, there are tests involved. There are all types of regulatory things that David needs to comply with. I'm an AV rated lawyer. That's the top independent rating you can get from all the other lawyers and judges in town when it comes to ability and ethics. Lisa and I are both very, very proud of that. It's not something that you can buy. It's not something that just happens overnight. I think it took me like 15 years, David, right? Halfway through my career. But what you want to do is do your due diligence before, investing money, hiring a lawyer, even seeing a doctor. Make sure that you're in the right hands for the right reasons. One of the things, though, when it comes to investing, we've talked about retirement plans, we talked about life insurance, annuities, both variable and fixed, is understanding and appreciating the risk levels that we're getting ourselves into. What are some things we should look at in evaluating risk levels and what's right for you or me?
Right. This is a great point to bring up, Mitch. And however great of an advisor or an investment firm or a set of investment products you come up with, it's really not worth a hill of beans if you can't stick with it. Because the only real way to build wealth in the securities markets is to think long term. And so that means whatever your strategy is, you have to be fairly comfortable letting it do its thing, letting the markets, the power and the wisdom of the markets, as well as the people that are running the funds and portfolios that you have, letting them do their work over the long term, period. And if as soon as there's a shakeup in the market, all of a sudden, again, talking about the issues with the way our mind works, you extrapolate that, the market's going down and this is going to be terrible, and you jump ship, you will never wind up enjoying the power of the market. So that is why it would be much better for somebody to have a portfolio that has lower risk that they can live with and just let it go, as opposed to pushing the pedal all the way down against the firewall into something very aggressive in the hopes of making a high return or a higher return, only to not be able to take it when times get rough. There's a great investor, Shelby Cullum Davis, who was the founder of the Davis family of mutual funds, and his great line was, "You make most of your money in bear markets, you just don't realize it at the time." And so you want to be able, and that's the truth. And this is from a guy who was worth over $1 billion. So I think he probably knew. So that is why working with an advisor or another financial professional, one of the first things before a single dollar is invested, there should be a good discussion about, how do you feel about risk? How do you feel about market declines? What is your time horizon? Most importantly, is it just a year out? You're going to buy a house with some cash you have in the bank, or is it 20 years because you're saving for retirement or to send one of your children to college? So that is, it's really critical. And again, going back to where we started the conversation about paying yourself first, there's another great author in finance uses the term, investing is about inventorying your success. All right, about inventorying your success. And when you think about the inventory in a warehouse or something, it's just there. It doesn't, the owner of the inventory doesn't come and, pull all the boxes off the shelf just because he woke up with a headache or something. No, the inventory stays there, and then we come through and we extract it and utilize it in a disciplined, organized fashion. And that's what you want to be doing.
It's reassuring to hear, and you make it sound so simple and easy. But sometimes when we turn the TV on and the market's down hundreds, if not, hundreds and hundreds of points, or you're expecting some bad news, it's tough to sit tight. When I was younger, David, just true story, everybody. When we were younger, we would react to that type of stuff. Lisa and I would, right? It's like, it's time to get out. Let's sit on the sidelines for a while. But I can comfortably tell you, probably over the last 20, 25 years, we did just the opposite. We kind of sat tight because we were diversified and everything, and we do most of this stuff on our own, David. And although I'm going to talk to you once we're off the air about a couple of things, all right, just so you know. But what I've noticed is even when things get hit hard, we're so glad that we didn't try to time the market. We're so glad that we were looking long term, because it's just, over the long term, it's been an amazing increase or, incline in stock value and stock prices, which leads me to the last topic, which is diversification. What is it? Why does it matter? Is it what we really think it is? And but before I have you answer that question or dive into that topic, what is the reasonably expected long-term annual gain in the market, like over the last 50 years or 75 years? Do you have a number you can share with us? What are reasonable expectations?
It's roughly about 10% per year for the S&P 500 for the last 75 years. Okay. And so that includes the ups and downs of the 70s, the Great Depression, and World War II, the great
Black Monday.
financial, the Y2K, all those things. So one thing about the market itself is you just have to remember that you may, like you said, Mitch, you may turn on the TV and there's something going on that sounds frightening or at least problematic for your investments. But remember, there are hundreds of millions of decision makers around the world who are actually making those price choices and stuff. So, and while it may accelerate things and make them seem more painful on the way down, that same force has the ability to see what the opportunities are long before you're going to get your engraved invitation saying to get back into the market. So, and again, kind of common sense, like some of the viewers said, but it bears repeating.
I think that's super important. It's kind of tough to outsmart the market and outsmart all the experts, especially if that's not what we do for a living. That's why I'd rather just have someone else handle this stuff. Let's talk diversification in the last 10 or 15 minutes, David. And I've got probably about 10 questions. Maybe we can rapid fire through if you don't mind. I think you can handle it. But what's diversification premised around what we've been talking about and how we've been talking about this topic?
So diversification is probably one of the last remaining free lunches in investing that is out there. And it is mainly the idea that, of course, just like your mother and your grandmother and your great-grandmother told you, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. And more specifically, look to divide up your long-term investments between things that maybe counterbalance each other or don't march to the same drummer. Maybe you have some money in U.S. stocks, but you also have some money in international stocks. If the dollar begins to decline, that could be a benefit to international stuff or vice versa. Similarly, most importantly, of course, the most fundamental diversification line is between how much you have in bonds and in stocks. And so going back to what we said about your risk level, that's going to be the fundamental determinant of how much risk you're taking, as well as the fundamental dividing line is on diversification. And again, your financial planner or professional can help you maximize the integration of all these different categories of investments so that it smooths out the portfolio to the best that it can. Now, diversification is not a silver bullet, though. If most likely, in the event of a major stock market decline or a secular decline, as we call it, all of the stocks are going to go down temporarily, but they will probably come back at different times. New opportunities will be open for some, and some doors will be closed for others. And so you want to make sure you have all of your bases covered in that regard.
For most investors, for most people, let's say small business owners, your average family that has the ability to make some investments, they've got some excess income, whatever it might be. What are your thoughts on, someone once told me, hey, Mitch, don't ever put more than 5% of your money into any one stock as part of your portfolio. Talk to me a little bit about that. What are your thoughts?
So, I don't know that I want to comment too much on individual stocks per se, but that certainly is, and that concept actually does come from academic research. And the academic research is that the minimum number of stocks to achieve the adequate diversification within a stock portfolio is right around 20. Okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, that's right. So if you buy 20 technology companies, no. But if this is right, which
right,
I have the feeling some people are doing right now, but nevertheless, but if you have a diversification between technology and finance and industrial companies, healthcare and the like, that is the minimum number of stocks to, and adding any more individual holdings to the portfolio does not notably increase your diversification. So if you're at the golf course and somebody says, oh, I've got 45 stocks in my portfolio and you have 21 in yours, as far as the benefits of diversification, now, all of your picks may be great and all of his may be lousy. We have no idea, Okay. But as far as the benefits of diversification, there's probably not much difference between the two.
So I was at the golf course back in I want to say the early 90s, and a buddy of mine, David, it might have been one of our Rotary Club golf tournaments. And I remember him leaning over and say, you might want to look at this company called Dell. Now, this is back in the day, back in the early 90s. And I remember we went ahead and put some serious money into Dell. And it was like every single day, the stock would go up $2 to $3, a day per share, right? I mean, it was just crazy. It was just crazy. My father-in-law was like, this is not sustainable, right? But for years and years and years, it just continued to just climb. And then eventually, I think it was, the end of the 90s when all the tech stocks, Y2K type of thing, it wasn't pretty. And we got out a little bit early. But I was thinking to myself, okay, we did put a lot of money into one stock and it turned out really well. But that could have been a nightmare also. It could have gone south real quick. And today, when we talk about investing in mutual funds, for example, where you're investing in thousands and thousands of different companies, not 20 companies, not 50 companies, but thousands of different companies. Is that another way to diversify? Like if I came to you and said, hey, David, I want to invest in mutual funds, not necessarily any one particular company, we could work out something like that also, right?
Absolutely. And first and foremost, that is the most notable benefit of mutual funds is instant diversification. Absolutely. And so I thank you for bringing that up and bringing the conversation back around to that. Because
that's just what I do.
Yeah, there you go. That is the most notable benefit. And most people probably should stick with diversified mutual funds, exchange traded index funds, or a combination of the two, and really avoid dealing with individual stocks. Because of course, I'm glad to hear that you made money on Dell, but that story could easily have stocks, that story could easily go ahead.
Real talk. I mean, other stocks we lost money. So
there you go. And it would be horrific to torpedo your kid's education or the purchase of a vacation home because you were writing XYZ to grab the very, very last dollar that you possibly could. Okay. Yeah. And so, and of course you know this, but it's important to reiterate that this is how our mind works. We focus on the winners and push the losers aside, so. Yeah. So we have 4 or 5 more minutes. Do you need to hold me tight to the top of the hour? Do you need to get out of here? No, sir. I'm solid, dude.
Okay, I've got like 10 questions here, and this is great. So good, David. I would love to thank you very much. I appreciate that. And you guys, it's about 4 o'clock here on the West Coast, so we're wrapping up our day anyway. So you don't have to answer these questions. If I'm not asking them correctly, you guys reach out to David. He'll share his contact information with all of us at the end of the show. He can answer these questions directly. And David, you can keep your answers short and sweet if you want to try to get through all 10 or 12 of these. So anyway, I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. Is there any way I can invest in Bitcoin? So is that something you guys handle or not?
So our firm does not allow us to do anything with cryptocurrencies. They're not, and again, history will decide what the outcome of that decision is. So I'm not here to condone or criticize that. Cryptocurrencies. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I interrupted you. I was just going to say, if someone's interested in investing in cryptocurrency, can they reach out to a certified financial planner that does that kind of stuff, or do they need to do that through the internet?
There probably are advisors who are involved, but it's not me.
Okay. Fair enough. Good question though, because that is in the news all the time, right? Let me see. What are your thoughts on what the hot sectors are going to be in 2021? For example, and I guess what this person's talking about is tech sector, environmental companies, compliance companies. It looks like petroleum, big oil. Understanding with the new administration coming in, maybe some things that you've read about, what I'm guessing they're going to tighten up, as they probably should, with making sure companies take care of our environment, right? Some of those standards were stripped. When you strip those standards, you guys, what that means is the companies aren't spending as much money protecting the environment, and instead, in my opinion, shareholders are making more money. I don't think that's a good thing. We need to balance that to live in a safe environment. But just with the new administration coming in, are there any particular, generally speaking, sectors that you would keep your eye out on?
I'd rather not comment per se on individual sectors. What I will say is, in general, from a really big overall market perspective, don't let, I mean, some of your viewers may be concerned about the incoming administration. Some may be, very, very excited or what have you.
No, none of my viewers are concerned. They're all in favor of the incoming administration.
There you go. But even given that, it's not really going to matter probably in the long run a whole lot of who is in charge. For that, we tossed out there all these hundreds of millions of decision makers every day. Those investors, which you and I are among them, they're making these decisions. So don't be overly concerned. And I wouldn't try. There's in any case, there's very little that seems to be percolating to the surface as something really hot because of the new administration.
Sounds good. I have some friends out there that are into artificial intelligence, AI, whether it's on the product side, the software design side. Do you see AI? Is AI part of your portfolio? Maybe in some of the mutual funds? I'm guessing. I'm guessing the answer is probably yes, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tech companies, AI.
It's artificial intelligence, which takes many forms. It certainly is all throughout our portfolios, because the funds, both index as well as actively managed mutual funds, they are looking at various technology companies and saying that this is a critical element of increasing efficiency, increasing our ability to offload tasks, boring, repetitive, but slightly changing and adjusting and evolving tasks to machines. So that is very big. And I have the feeling you don't have to go looking at you have to drill down to tiny little companies that are incredibly risky. I think probably most large technology companies have initiatives in this space as well.
Absolutely. And they do. That's a great question. These are just things I think people are interested in watching the show. It looks like there are apps out there that allow us to invest from our phones. I know what they're talking about, where if you're purchasing something for $3.55, you can click a button and the balance of that gets automatically rolled over into some type of investment plan. Are you familiar with those? Is that something that you think is a good thing, a bad thing, or should we let those apps mature a little bit before people dive in?
So an example of what you're talking about is a app called Acorns, and which I'm familiar with. I don't recommend the use of these per se. The amounts involved are mostly pretty small. I mean, I haven't looked at the app to see just how much you can do the roundup. You can round up to the nearest dollar or the nearest $5. But anything that gets people saving a little more, thinking about the long term, that's all going to be good. Now, when you sit down with a financial planner, or just if you're doing stuff yourself, if you're on your screen, you do have to be realistic and say, okay, my Acorns account is accumulating maybe $20 into an S&P 500 index fund each month. Is that going to carry me to my goals? Probably not for most people, but it's a start. It's a great start, especially for young people.
I like that. Listen, our final question is, and so it's having the right mindset, right? Learning this stuff. This is very, very important stuff. You guys, I'm at the end of my life, more or less, you guys. And I know that the earlier you start planning for this, the greater return you'll realize because of compound interest.
Right.
Okay. And because of tax deferments and things like this. So the earlier you start, when you're my age, okay, David's still a young guy, but when you're my age, what's going to happen is you're going to have more money in the piggy bank to help your family and help your kids and give back to the community and donate to your favorite politician and maybe take a trip or two with your wife or significant other, right? So the earlier you start implementing what David's talking about, I think the better. The last question, David, and then we'll wrap this up. And thanks, you guys. There's some really good questions here. And I happen to know it's from an estate planning attorney. Can you talk a little bit about combining your estate plan, I guess living trust, things like that, with your investment vehicles? Will the two work together?
So again, enough for probably a series of shows there, but certainly if you have an investment portfolio and you have adopted a living trust, please, please, please make sure, A, that you have talked to your financial planner to retitle the accounts to which it applies, which are applicable, which are mostly after-tax retail accounts, that they've been retitled in the name of your living trust. That's the main point.
It's huge.
Some people, there's something to be said if you're thinking about designating retirement account or annuity beneficiaries in your living trust. Talk to a financial advisor or your attorney or both first. That may or may not be very helpful. But certainly, I talk with estate planning attorneys all the time to make sure that things are organized here the same way that they're organized in the client's trust document.
Yeah, I always say it's super important to coordinate your estate planning efforts with definitely, because you want some of this stuff to be in your estate plan and you want to make sure it's done right. So, David, this has been awesome, my friend. I really appreciate you sharing your years of wisdom and experience and the value you've shared with the audience. You guys, this is also recorded, everyone. So if you have someone who you care about that wasn't able to make today's live show, it will be available in recorded version in about 10 or 15 minutes at the same spot. So just steer them back over and they can watch. David, for people either listening to the podcast version of this show in a couple of weeks or they just didn't write it down, I'll include your contact information in the show notes. But for those listening to the show next week or the week thereafter, what's the best way for everyone to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can send me an email. That's real easy. That's David Lopez at royalah.com. That's DAVIDLOPEZ at ROYALAA.com. You can visit my website, which is www.socfp.com, as in South Orange County Financial Planning, www.socfp.com. I also have scheduling software there through Calendly. You can make an appointment to give me a call or Zoom, or you can just call me on the phone, which is great, 949-542-3316. Again, 949-542-3316, and I'll be the one answering the phone.
This is awesome. David, I wish this was around when I started my practice back in 1986, right? Sure. Mm-hmm. This is like, you guys, the information that David just shared, the ideas, the seeds that he's just planted. It's one thing to know how valuable they are to not only you, but your future. It's another thing to take action on this show and make things happen. And I think hopefully you'll circle back in 10, 15, 20 years if I'm still around and thank me. I know David will still be around. But David, thanks for your time. Thanks for your expertise. Thanks for your friendship. And for all of you watching, we appreciate you being here, you guys. Enjoy the journey and never stop making each day your masterpiece. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you, David.
Thank you for having me, Mitch. Really